Hi, welcome to my channel, Math Made Easy with Laurel. I'm Laurel, and in this video we're going to talk about multiplying fractions. So most of the time when people think about multiplying, they think that numbers get larger. And if you're multiplying with numbers greater than 1, that's true. So for example, if we had 5 plates, and each plate contained 3 cookies, and we wanted to know how many cookies do we have in total, instead of counting them individually, I can use multiplication. I can go 5 times 3 will be 15 cookies in total. Now let's look at what would happen if we only had part of a cookie or half a cookie on each plate. So if we just had half a cookie, use your imagination, on each plate, it's like 1/2 plus 1/2 would be 1 full cookie, plus another half would be 1 1/2, plus another half would be 2, plus another half would be 2 1/2 cookies. But again, we don't want to always have to count to get our result. We can use multiplication. So the total number of cookies would again be the number of plates times the number of cookies on each plate, which would be 1/2. And 5 will not get larger when you multiply by a value less than 1. The number gets smaller. So just understand that because it's multiplication does not necessarily mean your numbers get larger when you multiply. It depends on what you're multiplying by. So the way that we would multiply this, we have to write 5 as a fraction. When you have a whole number and it's not a fraction, the way you express it as a fraction is you put it over 1. So 5 would equal 5 over 1. And then when you multiply by 1/2, the rule is you multiply the numerators. So we would go 5 times 1. And you put that over the product of the denominators. So you multiply the denominators. 1 times 2. That will be 5/2. And if we want to express that as a mixed number, we divide 2 into 5. 2 goes into 5 2 times. 2 times 2 is 4, so there's a remainder of 1. So that would be 2 1/2. And we already know that we have a total of 2 1/2 cookies, and this multiplication process verifies that. So let's do some more examples of multiplying with fractions. So if we had 2/3 times 1/7, we can find this result by going 2 times 1, so multiply the numerators, over 3 times 7, multiply the denominators, and we will get 2 over 21. The nice thing about multiplying fractions is you do not have to have a common denominator. Let's try some more. In our next example, we have 4/5 times 3/4. And we could multiply our numerators and multiply our denominators, which I will do first, but then I'm going to show you a bit of a shortcut. So we could get an answer by multiplying 4 times 3 and dividing that by 5 times 4. So I would get a 12 over 20. And when you take a look at this, you're going to notice you can reduce. We can divide a 4 into the numerator and the denominator. So we're going to divide by 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 20 divided by 4 is 5. So my answer would be 3/5. There's something that we could have done with this particular example to make things easier. So we wouldn't have had such large numbers in our numerator and denominator, which then we would have to reduce. When you're multiplying, you're allowed to do what's called canceling. You can cancel common factors. So factors are numbers that are multiplied. So we have a factor of 4 in the numerator. We have a factor of 4 in the denominator. So canceling is like dividing by that 4. So we're dividing 4 by 4, and we're going to get a 1. We can do that as long as we do the same thing in the denominator. 4 divided by 4 is 1. Now we can multiply. 1 times 3 is 3. 5 times 1 is 5. So if it's possible to cancel before you even multiply, I recommend that you do so, because you're going to be working with smaller numbers and you're not going to have to worry about reducing when you get your answer. Let's take a look at another example. This next example is 3 over 32 times 8 over 15. We could multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators, but we would end up with fairly large numbers in our numerator and denominator, and then we'd have to try to reduce that fraction. So instead, let's cancel any common factors. Notice that we have a factor of 3 here. 15 has a factor of 3. So we're going to divide both of those numbers by 3. So 3 goes into 3 one time. 3 goes into 15 5 times. Also notice that we have a factor of 8 in this number as well as this number. So we're going to divide 8 into this numerator and 8 into the denominator. And if you've canceled once and you didn't cancel large enough and you notice there's something else you can cancel, you can go ahead and do that. The key is it has to be one of the factors in the numerator and one of the factors in the denominator. Now we have 1 times 1 over 4 times 5, 1 over 20. Let's take a look at how we multiply mixed numbers. When you're working with mixed numbers, you cannot leave them as mixed numbers. We have to change them to improper fractions. When we add or subtract these kind of numbers, we don't have to change them. But when you multiply, you do. We're going to change this to an improper fraction. 1 times 8 is 8, plus 5 is 13, so that'll be 13 over 8, times 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7, over 2. There's nothing we can cancel. There's no common factor in a numerator and a denominator. 13 times 7 will be 91. 8 times 2 will be 16. 16 divides into 91 5 times. 5 times 16 is 80, so we'll have a remainder of 11. So it's necessary to change to an improper fraction before you can multiply, and certainly before you can cancel. Do not cancel when you have mixed numbers. Let's do one last example with mixed numbers. If they are mixed, you need to change them to improper fractions first. So 2 times 3 plus 2 is 8 over 3, times 5 times 4 is 20, plus 1 is 21 over 4. Before we multiply, we're going to look to see if there's anything we can cancel. Notice that we have a factor of 4 in both 8 and 4, so let's divide both by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Then we have a factor of 3 that's common to both 21 and 3, so we're going to divide by 3. And now we multiply. 2 times 7 is 14 over 1. And anything over 1, we don't have to leave it as a fraction. We can just write it as a whole number. So the rule for multiplying fractions is you multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators. If you have mixed numbers, you need to change them to improper fractions first. And if you have common factors to the numerator and the denominator, you can cancel those before you do the multiplication. So practice these as much as you can in order to get good at multiplying fractions.